The courthouse smelled of old paper, cold marble, and quiet fear when the first scream tore through the hallway, sharp enough to stop hearts mid-beat. A woman was being dragged across the polished floor by uniformed officers, her coat slipping from her shoulders, her eyes wild with disbelief, while people pretended not to see. In that exact moment, a single father and war-worn veteran, sitting on a wooden bench with tired hands folded together, stood up without thinking, because some instincts never die, no matter how much life tries to bury them. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to channel name. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. The man's name was Daniel Cross, though no one in the courthouse knew it yet, and even fewer would have cared. To them, he was just another quiet figure in worn boots and a faded jacket, the kind of man you overlook without effort. But Daniel carried a past heavier than his posture showed. He was a veteran who had survived places where chaos ruled and mercy was rare, and now he lived a quieter war every day, raising his 8-year-old daughter alone after losing his wife to illness that came too fast and left too much silence behind. He cleaned offices at night, packed lunches before dawn, and taught his daughter that doing the right thing mattered even when the world didn't clap for it. Daniel had come to court that day for a minor custody paperwork issue, something that could decide whether his daughter's school assistance would continue. He was already nervous, already exhausted, already praying the system would be gentle for once. That was when the woman's struggle cut through the dull hum of the courthouse. She wasn't violent, not really. She was terrified. Her hands were raised, her voice breaking as officers accused her of disrupting proceedings. Her crime, it seemed, was refusing to accept a rushed decision that would strip her of everything she had left. Daniel didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. What he knew was fear when he saw it, the same fear he'd seen in civilians caught between power and indifference. His body moved before his mind caught up. He stepped forward, placing himself between her and the officers, not with aggression, but with the calm authority of someone who had faced worse than badges and raised voices. The room froze. People gasped. Security tensed. Daniel spoke in steady, measured tones, explaining that she was not resisting, that force was unnecessary, that this was a courtroom, not a battlefield. That intervention changed everything and nearly ruined him at the same time. The officers turned their attention on Daniel, accusing him of interference, threatening arrest. His heart pounded, not from fear for himself, but from the image of his daughter waiting at home, trusting him to come back. Yet he didn't step aside. He couldn't. Some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed without losing yourself. The woman collapsed into tears as the judge ordered order restored. She was allowed to sit. Daniel was warned and told to return to his bench. Whispers rippled through the room. Some faces showed gratitude. Others showed annoyance that someone had disrupted the neat machinery of authority. Daniel sat down slowly, hands shaking now that the moment had passed, wondering if he'd just cost himself everything over a stranger. As proceedings continued, Daniel learned fragments of the woman's story through hushed comments around him. She had been falsely accused in a corruption case years earlier, charges that were eventually dismissed, but the damage never healed. Her career had collapsed. Her reputation was stained. Today's hearing was meant to finalize a property dispute that would leave her homeless. She had tried to speak, to present evidence, but impatience met her words, and power answered her desperation with force. The judge called for a recess. The courtroom emptied in low murmurs. Daniel stayed seated, head bowed, replaying the moment over and over, questioning whether bravery was just another word for foolishness. That was when a court clerk approached him quietly, asking him to remain. Confusion washed over him. Had he crossed a legal line? Would his daughter lose him too? When court resumed, something felt different. The air was tense, charged with anticipation rather than routine boredom. The officers stood stiffly. The woman was no longer at the defendant's table. Instead, the clerk announced an unexpected procedural change due to a conflict of interest that had just been formally acknowledged. People leaned forward. Daniel frowned, not fully understanding what was happening. Then the side door opened, and the woman walked back in, no longer shaking, no longer hunched under fear. She wore the same clothes, but her posture had changed. Her face was composed, her eyes steady. She walked past the stunned officers, past the murmuring spectators, and up to the elevated bench. In a voice clear and calm, the clerk announced that Judge Evelyn Hart would be presiding over the remainder of the session. The room erupted in disbelief. Daniel's breath caught painfully in his chest. The woman he had just protected from being dragged away was not just another desperate citizen. She was a senior circuit judge, temporarily reassigned and attending the hearing under special review to observe systemic conduct after allegations of misconduct had surfaced. Her identity had been withheld for security reasons. The officers had not known. The presiding judge had not known. Only now, after witnessing firsthand how power was being used, had she stepped into her rightful seat. Judge Hart looked out over the courtroom, her gaze sweeping across every face, before resting briefly on Daniel. There was no smile, no dramatic gesture, just a quiet acknowledgement heavy with meaning. She spoke about dignity, about how justice is not proven by authority but by restraint, and how the law loses its soul the moment it forgets the people it serves. Her words were not angry, but they were devastating in their truth. The officers were dismissed pending investigation. The original judge recused himself. The woman's case was reopened fully, her evidence reviewed properly, her voice finally heard. By the end of the day, the ruling was reversed. She would keep her home. Her name would be cleared publicly. The system, at least for once, had corrected itself. Daniel expected nothing for himself. He gathered his papers quietly, preparing to leave unnoticed as he always did. But Judge Hart requested his presence before adjournment. His legs felt heavy as he approached, every eye in the room following him now. She spoke about courage, about how rules mean nothing without people willing to stand up when those rules are twisted. She acknowledged his service, not just as a veteran, but as a father modeling integrity for a child who would one day ask what kind of man he chose to be. Weeks later, Daniel's life didn't magically transform into wealth or fame, but something changed deeply. His custody paperwork was expedited. His daughter's assistance was secured. A legal aid organization offered him a better job maintaining court facilities during the day, allowing him to be home at night. More importantly, his daughter saw the news coverage, saw her father described not as a troublemaker, but as a man who stood up when it mattered. Judge Hart continued her reforms quietly, never speaking publicly about that day beyond official statements. But she sent Daniel a handwritten note once, thanking him for reminding her why she had chosen the law in the first place. Daniel kept it folded in his wallet, not as proof of heroism, but as a reminder that even tired hands can still change the direction of a falling world. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that goodness still exists in small, brave moments, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope and subscribe to channel name. Your engagement keeps these stories alive. And before you go, comment below one word that this story made you feel, because your voice, like Daniel's, matters more than you think. In a world loud with power and rushed with judgment, it wasn't a badge or a title that saved justice that day. It was a single dad who refused to sit down when someone else was being crushed, proving that sometimes the quietest people carry the strongest sense of right, and that kindness, once chosen, has a way of finding its rightful seat.